I'm ready now, and I hope you're also ready. I'm very happy to be here in this very beautiful town of Geneva. And coming here was actually more about not only Prashant, but also his friends here. I met him in person in November last year at the meeting of the International Buddhist Federation in Delhi, in India. So I was very impressed with his presentation there of his ideas from the Dharma Alliance. And I think this is a very welcome initiative, because I think there should be more in-depth communication between Indic civilization and the other cultures on this planet. I think this because I have a long-standing sort of love relationship to India and the Indian culture. But back in the 1980s, I started studying what was referred to as Indology. In my case, that meant studying classical Sanskrit and Pali, both the two of them. So I spent a few years at the University of Oslo, a very capable German professor of Sanskrit and some other capable teachers, learning those two languages. Or to be honest, you don't learn Sanskrit fully in a few years. I think you need many years to really master Sanskrit, because it's not just a question of grammar and basic vocabulary, but it's about understanding the whole culture, basically. So, but I felt that this was very worthwhile, although it didn't bring any kind of advantages in terms of career prospects and such matter, but actually it has been very useful through my life. And I won't go into all of that because I have a presentation to give you. But I think looking into the past may sometimes give us some insight into the present and even the future as well. So I think that is my starting point, and I think that is what my friend Prashant actually invited me to do. So we will see where we go in this exploration, which is about the person that lived here on this planet in India 2,300 years ago. So it's actually an exploration that goes to the limit of recorded written history in India and even in many other parts of the world. This title, it was actually written by my friend Prashant, but I think it's very pertinent. It's pointing to some of the main issues that comes up when we try to understand the great emperor Ashoka. I think he called himself the king, usually Raja, but he was the leader, the head, the ruler of a great empire, and we will look a little bit into that. And I think we should just keep in mind this issue about diversity and identity. I think we have to look specifically into his writings that in a way contextualize the meaning of this I would say issue. And governance ethics, yes, and I would say it's actually something that it covered governance and ethics, but it really went beyond that, and we will also look at that. Anyway, now we start this exploration. I was actually given the impression that the audience would be not so familiar with Indian history, but so far I got the opposite impression. So we'll see where that takes us. So of course we are talking not about the Indian, like contemporary political science, but Indian subcontinent. So all these current entities of Pakistan and Bangladesh and so on, of course it doesn't matter here. So we are talking about the 3rd century before the Common Era, what happened at that time. And I was not supposed to say very much about the religious context, because of course the religious context is very relevant in the case of Ashoka, that we will see soon. But of course, we have the Brahminical tradition, early Hinduism, we have Buddhism, Jainism, and we have other streams of schools of thoughts and other forms of belief. I think for our purposes, we can just refer to a sort of sociological kind of overview that we have the Brahminical tradition, hereditary priests, compared to the shamans, who are more like homeless spiritual seekers. We have the Brahmins embedded in the social structure, and we have the shamans living outside the social structure. It's a kind of fundamental pattern of religiosity in India at that time, and I think it evolves in ways that kind of blurs this distinction somewhat. But I think at that time this was, concepts that we can help us understand the religious life at that time, and the Brahmins being married householders and the shamans being celibate renouncers. I think this pattern is important. I think for people with Indian background, it's not sort of necessary to remind people about it, because it's sort of self-evident aspects of Indian religiosity, but not for others. And then we have the Buddha, and again there are issues about dating. I think there was a conference in Germany in 1998 that tried to sort out all these discussions about the time of the life of the Buddha. And they came to certain conclusions, but they were not actually accepted by all. So I think, at least as far as Western scholarship is concerned, the Buddha's lifetime is what you see here, 566 to 486. But again, there might be, uncertainties and disputes. So there's a very important number in this scholarship, that is 218. 218 means that according to some sources, that from the time of the death of the Buddha to the time of the coronation of Ashoka, 218 years passed. So that has been used to fix both the time of the death of the Buddha and the time of the coronation of Ashoka. But anyway, we are not yet there. Here we just see a picture of the Mauryan Empire, which is amazing by its size. I mean, covering what is India today, including Bangladesh, some parts of Afghanistan. So, of course, there are some written records about governance and this kind of state, and we have some Greek sources as well, but it's not fully known how this empire operated. But the important thing is that it was established around 321 before Common Era by Chandragupta Maurya, and followed by his son Bindusara, and then we have Ashoka coming on the stage. And these are just some figures, and they are was consecrated as the Raja or the emperor of this empire. And then we see certain things happening, which is basically about his spiritual and religious orientation. We see that there was a war happening 8 years after his coronation. It's called the Kalinga War. And we will learn more about it. We know a lot about it because I think Ashoka was the first and maybe one of the very few emperors that expressed his ideals and his thoughts and his ideas of ethics and governance and policies in writing in the Brahmi alphabet. And we have this, we have around 30 inscriptions on pillars and rocks, boulders, and cave walls that are attributed to Emperor Ashoka. And of course, that gives us a really unique insight into the mind of this emperor. So here we have this Brahmi script. And for our purpose and for our story, I think it's worthwhile to think that to reflect upon the fact that this Brahmi script was gradually becoming obsolete. It was not used in India because the Brahmi letters developed into what is now the Devanagari alphabet. And of course, there are a number of other alphabets in India, but I think the common understanding is that this Brahmi script gradually became unintelligible to people in India. So in many ways, his message and what was written was scholars that managed to decipher this alphabet and began to read these texts. And these texts were very few at that time, but then gradually more and more were discovered in various places in India and other places. So then we know quite a lot. Basically, we are talking about 30 plus inscriptions, and we are talking about 4,614 words, according to the scholar Patrick Olivelle. He tried to count these words, but it's a considerable amount of literature. But of course, compared to other books and scriptures, it's not very much. But of course, it's very relevant because it's his own writings that he ordered to be carved into rocks, so it was kept for posterity. And then we have the other sources of knowledge about Ashoka, and since they give different pictures of Ashoka, of course there's a lot of space for scholars to argue and discuss, and I won't spend time on that now. I just mentioned that these sources exist, and Ashoka, although he was largely forgotten by people in India, he was very much remembered and revered by Buddhists in China and in Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. But the picture you get of Ashoka from those writings is quite different from the picture you get from Ashoka from his own inscriptions that are his contemporary words. So we'll just leave them. We won't use them here for this presentation. So then, after 8 years of rule, this happened. This is from Sanchi Stupa in India. And this is his own writings. And basically what we see here is expression of regret. Expression of regret for the violence, for the killing, for the suffering that he had inflicted through this war of aggression of the people in this country. I think Kalinga is more or less Orissa or Odisha in India today. And he expresses his deep pain by the killing and so on. And then he reflects on the fact that people have dignity, they have religions, they have values, they have families, friends, and so on. So violence, I mean, in that perspective, is really something horrible that we need to contemplate, and we need to end, basically. Violence is not an option. Of course, for warriors that was an option, but I think this is a kind of decisive point in the life of Ashoka, and he sort of elaborates on this point that people have this dignity of faith, of values, and they have Brahmins and Shamanas. And even with the Greek that live outside the Indic culture, we still have this dignity of humans because of religion, because of faith. So at this point, he decides that he will refrain from using violence, although he is still so he's still sort of reminding his, I wouldn't say enemies, but the people that live on his border, that this is something he's serious about, but still he has his war, and he has his army, and he has the capacity to act. I mean, he is not peaceful just because of his weakness, but because of his decision to commit himself to non-violence. And then we have a very important point, because scholars have discussed to what extent Ashoka was a Buddhist or not, and what he was doing. Was that Buddhism or was it something else? And this is what we're going to look at. We see here this timeline, which is not very long. It's following the Kalinga War, and he says that he became an upasaka, that means a Buddhist layperson, that he was not very diligent at first, but gradually he changed. And he wrote this rock edict that is dated to this year. I mean, this star means that it's actually uncertain. It's actually not dated, but it's the estimate of scholars like Patrick or So what we see here, I just show these edicts, and I won't spend a lot of time on them because we need to focus on what is the main topic of this presentation, which is Ashoka's Dharma. Ashoka's Dharma as a ruler of a country, moving beyond his personal religious identity. That is the main point that we need to, I would say, discuss and reflect upon. And here he says that, yes, he became an upasaka, and gradually he became more zealous. And then if you see here, in a way he's already indicating his message of going beyond Buddhism, because he don't talk about Buddhist doctrines. He doesn't talk about the Four Noble Truths, the Five Precepts, doesn't talk about Nirvana. He just talks about simple ethics, and he talks about heaven, the afterlife. Of course, that's a concept in Buddhism, but also a concept in many other religions, and also at the time of Ashoka. So he has a sort of second awakening. First he became a Buddhist, but then he became something different. I mean, he moved beyond promoting Buddhism into promoting something much broader, much larger. And I think we will see this now from his own writing. And here we see some of the same kind of change. On the one hand, he went to Sambodhi, which is interpreted as Buddhgaya, and then he says visit and gives to Brahmins and ascetics, Brahmanas and Shamanas, So not only Buddhism, all religions. In Buddhist writings, this term Shravana Brahmana is a very kind of positive general term. I learned recently that in other sources it's actually more like a dichotomy or contradictory term. I think scholars can say more about that. But and you see these humanitarian aspects of supporting the ages and also like instructing them in Dharma. But I think at this point we are not talking about Buddha Dharma, we're talking about Ashoka's Dharma, the broad Dharma of ethical, his moral philosophy, his ethical message. So, and again, this is just, you know, to remind us that Ashoka remained very much involved with the Buddhist community, the Sangha, which means the community of monks and nuns. And he even advised monks on the scriptures, texts to read and to study. So, yes, and again, visiting Lumbini where the Buddha was born. And again, actually using the power of the state to maintain the unity of the Buddhist church, the Buddhist Sangha. So I think by and large we can conclude that Ashoka was a diligent Buddhist, but he moved from that position into another one. And here we see the texts again. And we will move to this. I mean, it's all about this. It's all about Dharma. We see that this has a Buddhist meaning, but we also see that it has a more general ethical meaning that became the project of Ashoka, what he wrote about in his inscriptions and what we can see here. So here in these points, what is Dharma to Ashoka? It's very simple. It's not very metaphysical or religious or specific and religion. Just father and mother should be respected, elders, kindness to living beings, truth should be spoken. In these ways, the Dharma should be promoted. There's nothing mystical or religious or metaphysical about it. It's just human values. And very simply, and this is an ancient rule. It's a kind of appeal to old values. It's nothing revolutionary new. It's just reminding people that there are basic human values, and these should be treasured and protected and developed and followed. And again, the same thing. And again, that he writes this thing. He has a certain optimism that reminding people about these simple fundamental things will actually inspire people to actually act like that. And that his inscriptions would be like a mean of communication for this form of communication and reminding people. And again, I mean, he really kind of put all the emphasis on using this word dharma. Because in earlier writings, I think there are references in like Vedic scriptures and Upanishads that dharma is what is about might. If might is not right, right stands over might, and might right is what is referred to as dharma. According to some references. I think scholars can elaborate a lot on this history of the term dharma in Indic cultures. But here it has a very universal and very specific meaning, and focus very much on intrapersonal relations. It's not but there's nothing about meditation or samadhi or bhavana or any of those kind of spiritual matters. It's just everyday, ordinary ethics. And again, this belief in propagating things, communicating things to others, that the good news can be spread. And now we also see Ashoka becoming very specific. Of course, he was in the power to legislate, he was in a position of power to protect, for instance, all these animals and birds that are listed here. It's a very long list and very specific list. So he could order people to abstain from killing those animals. And again, this is also interesting. I mean, here there is probably a clash with certain forms of religion which include the slaughter, the sacrifice of animals. So here is actually a ban on such practices based on the principle of non-violence. And again, you see King Piyadasi, that's a very common name for Ashoka in these inscriptions, that he also reflects on his own actions, on his own life. And again, that the slaughter of animals for the kitchen in the palace will gradually, cease. And I think this point is also very interesting, because it's not just all talk. It's also a matter of governance, of administration. Here he says that he, after 13 years of rule, he established officers, officials that had some sort of responsibility to implement his moral philosophy of Dharma to the people. And not only in his own country, in his own empire, but also among the Greeks outside his empire. And there's also this aspect of humanitarian activities that we also see here. And again, sort of straightening up the administration that Ashoka, King Piyadasi, is committing himself to this, you can say, project of Dharma, which means welfare for all and a moral society, a moral state. So, and this focus on finding happiness in this life and attaining heaven in the next. So this sort of religious dimension is there as well. And also this issue about proper treatment of prisoners, to reform the way prisoners were supported on humanitarian grounds. I think there's some disputes among scholars whether Ashoka actually abolished the death penalty or not. So I've seen some scholars saying that, but I'm not quite sure about it. But anyway, he was concerned with the situation of prisoners. And again, this aspect of medical treatment for humans and medical treatments for animals, and doing things to promote medical service and medical help to people, and even doing it abroad outside his own empire. So you have this dimension of humanitarianism, not just talking morality, but actually doing things to care for people, and having a caring state, you can say almost like a welfare state. And using this term conquest by Dharma Vijaya, as I think as a sort of slogan to inspire himself and to inspire others, that this is something very worthwhile and important. And here we come to a very interesting part of Ashoka's governance and Ashoka's Dharmic project. Here we see Ashoka actually relating to all the religions in his empire. Like here, Sangha means Buddhism, Brahmins, meaning the Brahminical tradition, Ajivikas, they were very important at that time, but disappeared later. And Nigantas means giants. Giants are still around in India. So they were sort of invited into his Dharmic project. He used this term pasanda, but I think religions is sufficient for the time being, because there's a big discussion following that term. And here we see a very, I would say, important concept in Ashoka's thinking, and which is this challenge, I would call it, focusing what we call growth in the essential of all religions. So you see it here in his own writing. Sala means sara, so like essence, and bhakti means growth and development, and yes, all religions, sarva, pasana. Okay, so here we have him stating that he honors all religions, both the householders and the ascetics, and he supports them, but he wants to see growth in the essential of all religions. And what is that? So he says first that religious people should not praise themselves on the expense of others, criticize others, or denigrate others. If that is cause for criticism, it should be done in a mild way, he says. So he has established this principle of interreligious relations, that there need to be a culture of dialogue, of genuine kindness and real communication. So, and it goes further and says it's better to honor other religions for specific reasons. When there is reason to say something positive, do it. And in this way, your own religion will benefit, and so will other religions. And the opposite have this opposite results. So, and he sort of criticizes the religious people that they think that when they have very strong faith, they glorify their own religions and kind of denigrate the others. He says that this only creates harm for your own religion. So, I mean, it's a very explicit sort of criticism of religious people and a very clear challenge. So then he says that contact between religion is good. I mean, religious people, religious leaders should come together and they should listen to and respect the doctrine professed by others. He actually says that you should be well learned in the good doctrines of other religions. This is what he says. And of course, this is really, I would say, remarkable, because this is the first time in human history that this issue has been addressed explicitly, and here also in writing. So I think this is a tremendous document that really, relevant for many reasons. And then he sort of concludes on this point of growth in the essentials of all religions. It's a very, I would say, very significant concept, and also very challenging concept, I mean, theologically and doctrinally, but very interesting, I think. And then again, referring to his officials, the active engagement of the state with religions. So he sends out these officials to engage with the religions, which he thinks that it allows religions to grow, but also to Dharma in the broad sense that he already specified to be illuminated. So there's a lot of, I would say, emotion and enthusiasm also that you can read in this on these rocks and columns that have been standing there unread for more than 2,000 years. But now they are available to us. And sort of nearing the conclusion of this presentation, I think something very exciting happened in Afghanistan, I think in 1958. because outside the city Kandahar, these inscriptions were discovered. And they are in Aramaic and in Greek. And this is an Ashoka inscription. He actually says that it happened 10 years after his reign, so it's in the same period that we have seen some of these other inscriptions about his commitment to Buddhism and his commitment to Dharma, to spread ethical values. So, and this is, I would say, very significant documented, and here we sort of have our understanding of Dharma, Ashoka's Dharma, confirmed. Here they translate the Dharma with the Greek term Eusebia, which means something like reverence or piety, something like that. So, which I think is hugely important as a key for interpreting the intention of Ashoka, because this is not, there's nothing about Buddhism here. He had his own personal strong belief and commitment to that particular religious tradition, but as a ruler, he had a vision that was very different. Because it was probably nurtured from his study of the Buddha Dharma, but it was a very different vision because it was expressed in a language that was not specifically religious in any sense. And I think that's the remarkable thing about Ashoka, that we see him actually doing that in his own words at his own time for his contemporaries. So to summarize a bit what we have seen, of course, you can all read Ashoka's inscriptions. They are available in books, and everyone can read them, also in the original language as well. So they are, for everyone to study. And I think with people with Indian linguistic background and maybe some experience with Sanskrit, it's almost like an open door into the past of Ashoka. But anyway, what we see in simple ethics of human relations, we see non-violence, abhorring war, including protection of animals. We see this, I would call it religious or spiritual dimension of belief in afterlife, that is actually a very important thing. Because the Buddha said that the people may believe that there is no afterlife, and some will believe that there is an afterlife. But in any case, if there is an afterlife, and our consequences matter for that afterlife, it's better to keep that possibility open, because even if there's no afterlife, still you have lived a very good and meaningful life with that kind of belief. But Ashoka shows no doubts. I mean, he takes the afterlife for granted. It's a kind of cornerstone in his moral philosophy in that way. And also using the term Dharma, we just briefed. I mean, I just mentioned that sort of in passing, but I think it shows that the term Dharma was important to people in India at that time, because he chose to use this term. And his choice even made this term of Dharma even more important, I would think, in the history of India, especially the religious history of India. Of course, it came to mean other things, but I think his vision is there, and the rediscovery of his writings in the modern time, I think, probably has also had some implications and effect for, I would think, contemporary thinking about so-called secularism in the Indian context. But I think that's for others to discuss, not me. And also this emotional aspect that we can read out of his writing. I think it's very significant that there is this appeal to reason, but even more to emotions, to the sense of human dignity, the sense of just being human. That is something remarkable and precious and worthwhile to realize. And then again, involving the state. I mean, this is not just preaching to individuals. I mean, he's preaching to his own officials. He's using his own state to promote his moral vision. So, and also to even use it in his foreign relations. I mean, to use Dharma as a basis for peaceful and friendly relations to other countries. And the fact that he even shared medical knowledge and medical resources with other countries outside his empire, I think is a very good illustration of this vision of friendly coexistence and friendly relations to others. I put welfare state in inverted commas, but I think this aspect also comes out of the inscriptions that Ashoka claimed to care for people deeply and to look at everyone as they were his own children. This is what he declared to his own officials, that better do a good job because I really care about the people in this empire. So I think that is also very important. And also the moral implications of an ethical philosophy in terms of treating people with more dignity, with more justice. I think that is also very important, and we see it in many of the inscriptions. I've not included everyone here, but I think that's a very significant aspect of his moral philosophy and his form of moral governance, ethical governance. And not the least, his invitations to religions, to all religions, to be part of his moral vision of dharma, of victory by dharma, to create and to develop what he called, in this context, the essence of religions, because he was attracting religions, religious leaders, communities, and this is the term that he chose to use, the essence of the religion, which he expressed in other places in very concrete, basic terms of interpersonal ethics, care. And at the same time also supporting religions. I mean, on the one hand, he challenged them, he in a way, he also criticized them, and he sort of ordered them to follow a particular path of ethics, and particular the way they should relate to each other, the different religions should relate to each other. But at the same time, you also have the principle of supporting religions, that they are valuable and they are something good for society. So I think basically that is what I was able to read out of these inscriptions that are available to us now. It's about, as I mentioned, about 30 different inscriptions, and some of them you can find in many places in India. There's not just, they're not just carved in one place, they're carved in many places. And also kind of seeing them as his statement of policy and his choice of how to address and communicate with his contemporaries. I think it's wrong to think that this is just some formal, seeing himself or sort of communicating to himself. Sometimes scholars sort of imply that, but I think it's really important to see this as public statements that are still very personal and very visionary, but addressed to his contemporaries in this empire of the Mayurs, stretching all the way from Bengal to the mountains of Afghanistan. So I think this is a quite remarkable, I would say, treasure of ethical and religious reflections that, in at least from my point of view, it's something that can also inspire us today in conceptualizing how we should create common values that bring us all together in spite of all our differences. I mean, really appreciating differences, really appreciating the different religions, although they teach quite different philosophies and metaphysics, we can still be together because we share this essence of religions together. So I think we are not finished with Ashoka. I hope that he will be, remembered and reflected upon. And of course, scholars will always have more work to do to kind of figure out historical details and so on and so forth. But I think his basic message is very clear, is very strong, and is very fresh and relevant today in the way it was at his time, 2,300 years ago. So I think that's what I needed to say right now. There might be some comments and questions, so we can look into that as well.
Thank you for this lovely talk. I mean, I studied history in India, but I don't think it was covered in this way. There was one mention of Ashoka in the war at some point, and of course, the level of detail with which you have managed to study and also present it to us is fantastic. So we'll open up the floor to questions shortly, if we can keep it pointed to something specific that can also be recorded. And a little note to people watching us online, and sorry for the tech glitches at the very beginning. We'll have cleaned up the video and it will be uploaded shortly, so you can have that version online soon. Okay, thanks.
All right, any questions? Yeah, no. Oh, I'll just come back. Like, as it was said, pointed, brief, let's give everybody else a chance to speak, and of course, have an opportunity to answer the question. But whoever would like to go first is welcome to go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's an astonishing academic surprise to discuss the volumes here. So I have been a researcher in this area for the past 2 decades. What I would like to ask you actually is that there were a number of principles that you extracted from the inscriptions. I was wondering if the scholarship also extends to comparing and contrasting them with what is found in the Vedic corpus, in the Samhitas, in the Dharma Sutras and the Dharma Shastras. Because what I can see is that, for example, it seems almost like from the Tattva Samhita, Raj Dharma and Samanya Dharma, which is 2 of the 5 types of dharma which I explained to them. So I can see a number of parallels. So I wonder if this aspect of the comparison and the, what can I say, the similarity and the same roots has been discussed or explored in greater detail, and of course the parallels with the Artha Shastra.
So I think you're probably in a better position to answer that question, but it's a very good question, and I would say a very important question. Of course, what I would call the modern history of Ashoka has a few aspects that may be a little problematic. As we know, the inscriptions they were deciphered in 1837 by James Prinsep in the Royal Asiatic Society. So that was just the beginning, because at that time these inscriptions were not known or not understood. So then gradually they became known to the scholarly community, both in India and internationally. I think Vincent Smith was the first who wrote like a monograph on the inscriptions of Ashoka, and that was in 1900, beginning of 1900s, in the first decade. So I mean, what we are discussing now is sort of a modern phenomenon. And you had H.G. Wells writing his History of the World, which was probably read by Jawaharlal Nehru, and you had his version of Ashoka in his history to his daughter Indira Gandhi. So and of course you've seen how this Ashoka mission has been sort of co-opted by modern India, and of course you have the symbol of this column in the south, the line column, and you have the Ashoka's Dharma chakra. I think at one point there was an idea of having the spinning wheel as a symbol of India that was dismissed in favor of the Ashoka Dharma chakra. So of course you have this sort of history here, and I think the problematic implication from various points of view is that there may be a corresponding sort of denigration of the Hindu India, the larger context that it comes out kind of very black in order to see Ashoka as the Buddhist coming out as the sort of Indian saint.
Very well said.
Yeah, so I think that that is an issue, maybe not so strong today as it was maybe in the 1930s and in this Nehru period. So I think I've just done a very superficial, very limited reading of the Shastra, but of course it's very interesting to see the thinking, which is not just what was claimed by people like Max Weber. He said that the Martha Shastra was worse than Machiavelli's book, which is rubbish. I mean, it's not true at all. And of course, the Arthashastra is concerned about governance, about war, how to avoid war actually, but how to deal with it, about espionage, and especially about economy. Ashoka doesn't write anything about economy, but in Arthashastra, you find a lot about the economy. So there's much more of what you can call realism of governance in the Arthashastra, but there is also a moral vision, which I think is very interesting to observe, like caring for the weaker part of the society and caring for the poor people, for like mothers with children, so that sort of empathy and compassion is there as well. So I think in order to have a complete picture, to see Ashoka as well in the larger context of his time and his culture. So I think you also need to consult these other texts and to do it as was unbiased scholars to truly do justice to everyone.
Thank you so much for that answer.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you very much. It was a very enlightening presentation. In these inscriptions, very often it is mentioned development of religion. What do we understand by that? Or what do you understand by that? Does it mean that the religions are no longer simply dogmas, but they can change with the evolution of time?
Of course, this is also an interesting question. In the Ashokan inscriptions, what is referred to are pasanda. And in Ashoka's writings, I don't think it has any sort of value connotation. It's a kind of neutral term that refers to all you can say religious groups to use that terms. I mean, referring to Buddhism, Jainism, Ajivikism, and Brahmanism. Because this is what he do in his writings, and it's not very clear how he sort of imagines these groups. But of course, concerning Buddhism, we have a lot of writings about Chatu Parishat, the fourfold assembly of the Bhikshu, Bhikshuni, Upasaka, Upasika. So there is self-reflection of what it means to be a religious movement or institution, and also about the concept of dharma in that context, which is more like something eternal or something absolute, and then you have words to describe the religious institution like such. I mean, like in Buddhism, it's usually referred to as sasana or shasana, which is more the religion in its kind of temporal and institutional aspect. So the shasana can change and it can grow and it can deteriorate, but the dharma will never grow or deteriorate. It's a sort of eternal truth. So this is just referring to one particular tradition. Of course, the Brahmins, of course, there were more of them and many different schools, so there were probably more explanations that could say something about this issue. And of course, with the Jainas, Ajivikas are gone wrong, so we can't ask them, as well as the scriptures. So I think we have to be sort of humble in the sense we can conceptualize these groups existing during the time of Ashoka in different ways. If we have an ambition to use a kind of very broad general terms covering all such similar phenomena globally, which of course is the ambition of the term religion. That's why it's so difficult, because there are lots of people that feel that their particular movement or school of thought or whatever doesn't really fit into that category. Yeah. But that's a different discussion.
Next, I have a question. Thanks a lot for the presentation. In one of the examinations, I was asked that why Ashoka is called an international humanism. Basically, he was a staunch Hindu person, extended Buddhism, and then he develops these ideas which center more as international humanism. More or less, whenever India has been ruled by somebody who has become very powerful, he has left his alignment with any particular religion and went into international humanism, because there were so many diverse communities, and you have to be the emperor of all the communities, of everyone. So you find the essence of basically what is good for everyone, and then you try and promote that. My question is that, like Ashoka, and as a friend of Prashant, who is trying to establish this Dharma alliance, and it's a phenomenal job, who are the other thinkers or leaders elsewhere in other parts of the world who can come very close to this international humanism, this kind of concept? That will, if we highlight that more, then Dharma Alliance truly becomes a pan-global organization kind of thing. So if you can just clarify who are close to that.
So of course I will not answer on behalf of the Dharma Alliance, and the Dharma Alliance is not just like an offshoot of the Ashoka movement. But of course there are, very good, I would say, affinities and common values, I would say. Scholars have sometimes pointed to Emperor Akbar of the Mughal dynasty. Of course, he tried to do something similar. It didn't get very far with his own people, the Muslims, but it's still a very interesting and valuable example of someone who tried to move beyond the confines of his own religious community and, have a dialogue and unite people from different religions.
But in China or Europe or somewhere else, is there any?
I think it's not easy to find this kind of person doing what Ashoka did and expressing what he did. Because we can always discuss, I mean, scholars can discuss to what extent this project was successful. Because in the end, he died, and his successors were not like him. So, and also the Hungarian Empire disintegrated and disappeared. So it was only with the Guptas, you know, a long time afterwards that you have this kind of unity and stability and so on. So I think the fact that it's so difficult to find someone like Ashoka in some other place on the planet, in a way suggests what the precious and the unique person he was. That's at least my kind of thought.
Thank you, Mr. Egil. And it was very encouraging to see your passion and the kind of investment you have made to learn Sanskrit language and present on Ashoka to the Indian audience. So it is indeed appreciated. I just want to clarify or seek your reflection on a thought. Dharma is nothing but a code of ethics. What is your reflection on this? Secondly, do you think dharma and religion are synonymous to each other? Or religion is a separate school of thought and different religions have the same code of conduct, so same code of ethics? Or what I want to say is, in my opinion, dharma is an essence of all religions, whereas they have different, ways of thinking and ways of preaching. So what is your opinion on this? And secondly, what is your, from the historical perspective, you are a scholar in this field, what is your opinion whether the Upanishads that we read, are they pre-Buddhist or post-Buddhist era? I'm not clear on that. And I would like to take you to Maha Upanishad, which derives its rules from Atharvaveda and Samaveda, with 549 verses in it. One of the verses says, Ayam Nijaha Paro Viti Garna Lahu Chetasam, Udar Charitanam Vasudeva Kutumbakam. I think whatever we heard in all these 40 slides goes in this one phrase, one verse. What is your reflection on this? And last question, how do you relate this presentation to the present era? What is your message? How do you want to see the world changing based on this presentation?
So I think I have to be a bit humble here. Of course, the Upanishadic tradition is very significant, and also this whole comparison of Buddhism and contemporary Brahminical traditions like the Upanishads. But that's an entire new field of research that I'm not engaged in, so I'm not in a position to really say anything about it. Of course, I may have some, superficial ideas, but they are not to be shared as anything like serious reflections, scholarly reflections. So I think that there's one thing you mentioned about
Dharma and religion.
yes, and also this point about the code of ethics, which I think is very interesting with Ashoka and his inscriptions, because in Buddhism there are codes of ethics. You have the 5 precepts to abstain from killing and stealing and so on, and you have the 10 non-virtues, 10 Akushala Dharma, Pata, things like that. So you have, and you have the Eightfold Path and this, and there are lots of kind of codes of ethics in Buddhism and also in other religions. But when we read this, you can say, public statements from Ashoka that he ordered his officials to carve into the woods so people could read, those who could read. Or he actually writes somewhere that these writings should be read aloud on special holidays, so people could, in a way absorb the meaning in this way, because most people in India at that time had probably not learned the Brahmi alphabet. So the interesting thing with what we see here is that what Ashoka proposes is not really like a systematic code of ethics. It's just a proposal to be kind to people, respect your parents, be generous. I mean, very general kind of statements. So to me, it suggests that in a way he probably thought that you don't need to kind of spoon feed people about all the roots of, all these rules and regulations and specific points about ethics. Just get them to understand the main point. Be a human being, but understand that there are values from old time about being, having dignity as a human being, respecting parents, teachers, be kind to people, be truthful, and so on. And in a way, he says that's enough. If you don't understand that, you won't understand anything else either. I don't need to give you a long list. That's up to you. If you want to study your particular religion, you can learn more. So that's at least my reading. I mean, everyone reads the same thing on the rock. I mean, he wrote the same thing, but you can sort of interpret it in various ways according to our own understanding. Which of course is what's happened all the time when you learn something new. You interpret it according to your background and what you've learned before, things like that. So at least that, to me, that's an important point. And about Dharma and religion, I think it's a question of definition. I mean, Ashoka's Dharma was not a religion. It was above religions. It went, far outside the confines of a particular religion or religious system. And I think that was the genius about Ashoka, that he actually did that in spite of his strong commitment and his strong faith in Buddhism. He still was able to transcend his own personal faith and to articulate something that could be common to everyone, irrespective of the different faiths. So I think that's the real genius of Ashoka. And of his Dharma. I mean, he used this term Dharma. Dharma can be used in many ways, but he used it in that particular way. And it goes for people in India. Dharma is something very precious, something very fine, something very pure, something very good. So, of course, using the term Dharma in this particular way to denote common human values, I think was also something of a something very genius, very clever, very wise. So that's my understanding. But you can all read Ashoka's inscriptions, and you may have different ideas, but these are just my interpretation.
Thank you so much. And just one small reference in one of the slides, I read that from losing hundreds of animals every day. The concept of non-violence and protection of animals and all that means killing 3 animals per day is non-violent as compared to killing 100 animals per day.
It was a combination, and to me it shows this sort of his humanity. That is, it's not something you want to proclaim in public. That although you want to be, you want to protect all the animals and to be non-violent, still you kill birds for the kitchen in your palace. I mean, you wouldn't normally you wouldn't like to kind of announce that to everyone, but Ashoka did, and I think it shows the sort of human side of his personality that he actually did that. In spite of his ideas, he confessed that he was not actually living up to them 100%.
But personally, I think less violence is not non-violence.
Yes.
You see the context, I believe Ashoka doing this after hundreds of years being killed every day.
No, and he said he was trying to do it. He wanted to achieve it.
Yes.
He hadn't reached there yet, but he wanted to achieve it.
His second wife was a Buddhist. His first wife was a Hindu, so he had to keep both happy.
So, and it was Ashoka. We should make him into. We should make him into some sort of, like a slave. I mean, he was a human being. So, and I think that is also something of the value of these inscriptions, that they show him also as a human being. So it's I think it's remarkable how these rocks with some letters that we cannot read comes alive in this way as a very personal statement of his life and his beliefs.
This is indeed very interesting. 2,700, 2,500 years ago, this all has been written. And in WHO, we started working with the concept of universal health. Now we started working on One Health, and the latest trend in WHO is planetary health. So it takes care of plants, animals, as well as human beings. So it is interesting to see the genesis coming from here or is
Maybe the genesis is in Sanatana.
in Vedas.
Not in-
His edict in Nuristan, I was in Afghanistan, and his edict in Nuristan says that keep water for the birds in small here, because the migratory birds go from this place, so that. He has not mentioned about any, he has not mentioned anything yet.
But I think we should realize that all these are part of so many of the Dharma Shastra. I don't think it just it was not something.
I know it was a fantastic discussion and Q&A, and I would like to take a moment to thank you, Egil, for a fantastic conversation, discussion, evaluation. As always, I learn something new every day. Today, most definitely. One final note, I may just want to clarify that with regard to the website, it's migrating from .net to .org. Even if you might happen to type in .net, no problems, but just for clarification, it's now officially .org. Regarding upcoming events, I cannot announce anything new today, but as always, look at the website and it will be announced there, and if not, through the typical channels of social media. Have a fantastic day, great summer, and we will see you within a few months for sure after the holidays. Thank you.